Hello and good evening, everybody. We are so excited to have you today uh, for another presentation. We try to do these once a month uh, with a few months of exception, but we're back at it. And this is our first one with the new year. And we are excited to have our speaker here today to present to you. So happy New Year because I haven't spoken at a group like this. And Happy New Year. And thank you all for being a part and supporting Social Workers of Alabama. This is a this particular training today will be for one CEU, and so we do issue out to CEUs. We try to get those out, in all honesty, as soon as we can, and usually that's within a couple of days. Sometimes it will be the next day. So just keep a heads up. But if you haven't received it by Friday, please touch base with us. If you haven't received it by like the end of the day, Friday, then there may be something going on that's holding things up that you might want to check into. Um, but that's pretty much. There's no survey or anything after that. All you have to do is check your email. I encourage everybody to check your spam as well because sometimes that becomes a concern. If you get thrown out of the I'm going to be keeping track of everybody's in here. So if you get thrown out, just log back in. We're going to try to make sure we keep an eye out to make sure that everybody gets a chance to see and hear this presentation. I'm going to try to leave the link in the chat. We will afterwards, because I did push record this time, post this on YouTube. So if you for any reason want to check it out again, because it's going to be some great important details that you might want to look at, then you can check it out on our YouTube channel, and I will try to remember to put the link in the chat. Now, without further ado, we're going to present or I'm going to break down the bio here, present the bio for our speaker, and we're so grateful to have Angela Webster is here with us today, and we'll be presenting to Social Workers of Alabama. And she's going to tell you about the topic, but I want to introduce who we have. Angela Webster, MSW, IEC, MHE, has served as CEO of the Association of Infant Mental Health in Tennessee since it launched in 2016. As a mission-driven executive consultant in the early childhood and nonprofit sector, she brings a deep commitment to systems change, organizational development, and relationship-centered leadership. All right. Um, Drawing from her background as an MSW, Angela specializes in helping organizations bridge vision and practice, advancing policies, partnerships, and professional pathways that strengthen the workplace or the workforce, supporting little ones and families. Angela's work extends nationally, where she co-founded the Early Connections Collective to support states and system change and innovation, and continue to champion a cohesive, sustainable national network for early childhood nonprofit organizations and systems. Angela is a author of Raising a Nonprofit, a book you need to check out, in an early childhood world, um, a field-informed guide that supports nonprofit leaders in building sustainable, value-driven impact. Across every role, Angela remains grounded in integrity, collaboration, and a steadfast belief in the power of relationships to transform systems for children and families. Without further ado, we are going to turn the mic over to Angela. Angela, thank you so much for agreeing to speak for us today. I'm going to hand over the mic.
Thank you so much. It's exciting to be here with y'all. And this is the first time I've spoken in this new 2026. So I'm excited to have this first time with Alabama folks. your northern neighbor up here in Tennessee, but I'm not originally from Tennessee. I'm originally from the other side of the Mississippi over in Oklahoma, but glad to be with y'all. Want to just real quickly before I start sharing my slides, or as I share my slides, want to let y'all know that while my focus is on early childhood non-based nonprofits, all of the information that I want to share is really applicable to any nonprofit environment, and regardless of the age group you're working with or the focus of the work. The other thing that's important to keep in mind about that is, as social workers, many of us either work in nonprofits, for nonprofits, or with nonprofits. And so it's important for us to have some of this foundational information. So I want to talk a little bit about nonprofits in general and about leadership in nonprofit spaces. Are y'all able to see those slides? If you can, you should see three pictures of my family, basically. Everybody see the slides? Somebody give me a thumbs up. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, a little bit about me. I was telling Toya a little as I came in earlier. I will jokingly say I'm a teacher. I'm a preschool teacher at heart, and I started teaching in a classroom in another century. So I've not been in a classroom in this century, but back in the late 80s and the early 90s, I was a preschool teacher before I moved over into the field of social work. So I'm a teacher. I'm a storyteller. I actually have literally been a professional storyteller, which is super fun. The other things that are important to know about me is that I have my fingers in a lot of pies. You can see multiple logos there, of the different work that I do, even right now, all at the same time. I did recently author and publish my first book, and it has a companion workbook that should be coming out next month. So that's exciting. But deep down, I'm a preschool teacher and I love talking about nonprofits. It's a little bit weird in the field that we're in with so many things we can be passionate about, that nonprofits are kind of one of my favorite things to talk about. But I also believe that serendipity is something we can create. So might talk a little bit about that. But you'll see on the right, my family, we're adventurers. We travel a lot. We're a family of three and have been for 30 years. That bottom picture is my son with his back to us, taking my staff at Aim High, Tennessee on a nature walk because he's got a master's in forestry. So that's me, a little bit about myself. The biggest thing that's important to this group, though, probably is that I am a social worker. I have my bachelor's in social work from a university in Oklahoma back in the 90s, and my master's in social work from a program here in Tennessee, back in 2011. So we're going to talk about some things specifically related to nonprofit leadership, to leadership vulnerability, and thinking through how to strengthen our community partnerships and our mission alignment by having a deeper understanding about nonprofits in general, and then do some reflection on our own leadership practices. So again, I'm a baby and little kid person. That's the field I have swam in almost my entire career. And one of the things that we start pretty much every conversation with is it's so important to hold the baby in mind. And for the purpose of this conversation, it's important to know that that baby that you're thinking about might be the organization you work for. It might be an actual baby. It might be babies and young children that you work with. But the baby is the thing that centers us. The baby is who it's keeping our eye on the ball while we're doing the work. So as we talk through this evening, and please come off mute, ask me questions. It's going to be harder for me to see questions in the chat. So if you've got something, got a comment, got a question, come talk to me. But let's hold in mind the thing that centers us and that drives us in our day-to-day work as social workers. In my field of infant and early childhood mental health, There's a wise, wise woman. She passed away a few years ago, but a grandmother of my field is Jerry Paul. And she was known for saying, how you are is as important as what you do in this work. And so holding that in mind as well, thinking about the way that we do this work, that how informed we are, how well we know ourselves and how we are in a moment, determines how well we do this work. So taking care of you and ensuring that you're where you need to be allows us to be able to do our really, really critical and important work. So we're talking about nonprofits and some of the terms that we hear thrown around a lot in the field are things like funding and leadership and impact. Boards, nonprofits have to have boards, volunteers, transparency, strategy, evaluation. So we're going to get into some of those words, but we're also going to get into some myths and facts. So the first thing I want to talk about before we go into any details about nonprofits and about the way that we work in nonprofits. I want to take some quick first steps and think about some nonprofit concepts together. So there are a lot of myths in the world of nonprofits. One of those myths is that nonprofits can't have money in the bank. They've got to spend their budgets to zero. And so that's the first one I want to kind of dispel. Nonprofit as a term is kind of a misnomer. Nonprofit implies that we can't bring in any money or have any money at the end of the year or benefit from selling our work or having like fee for service programs. Nonprofit is simply a tax status. So if you take nothing else with you, if you're new to nonprofits or new to nonprofit facts, it's a tax status. It's a business just like other businesses, but it's not allowed to keep the profit and distribute it to its members or its shareholders. So nonprofits can make a profit. I can charge $100 for a training and then take that money and put it back into my programs. It's okay for me to have revenue. I can have a conference, and that conference can earn more money than it costs to put it on. The requirement is that I take those earnings and I reinvest them back into the work. I can't invest them into individual people like shareholders. So nonprofits actually should be aiming for positive revenue to build a reserve. So at the end of the year, at the end of your budget year, if you're at zero, that means you've got to start fresh tomorrow. And how are you going to pay payroll? How are you going to pay the rent for the building or the electricity? So we can and should build a reserve so that we can do the work. The key difference between nonprofits and for profits, and I said this a minute ago, nonprofit organizations cannot distribute any of their profits to a private individual. So in the for profit business, if I'm a shareholder in Starbucks, I can get money from what they earn. There's no such thing in the nonprofit world. So another thing we hear in nonprofits, we hear people talk about is that we shouldn't have high overhead costs. We shouldn't have, our admin costs should be as low as possible. But overhead, just like for Starbucks, overhead is real, it's anticipated, and it's a true cost that we have to incur to do business. So just like Starbucks has to purchase cups and then they have to sell the coffee to pay for the cups, we have and to pay for their buildings and to pay for their lights and to pay for their staff. In nonprofits, we have those costs too. So those costs are things like utility bills and rents and salaries and office equipment and printing and all of those things that it takes to do business that aren't directly impacting, say, we're working with families. The families aren't in the office while we're setting up appointments and while we're paying bills. So sometimes that's called overhead, sometimes it's called administrative cost, sometimes it's called indirect cost. But the bottom line, it's the money that it takes to run the business, and operational cost is the money it costs to run the programs. And we should have overhead cost. So, one of the things that always surprises me to hear is when people in the community think that nonprofits can't pay staff, that they're supposed to all be volunteer driven. So, because I can see some of y'all raise your hand icon if you work in a nonprofit. If that's your day job, I'm going to give you a second so I can look through. Anybody work in nonprofits? Oh, there we go. I'm seeing Tracy and Shantae and Macy and Brittany and Melody. And I bet yep, and it keeps going. Okay. So we know, thank goodness, that you can actually hire people. I'm the CEO of a nonprofit. I've worked in nonprofits almost my entire career. So the most recent number that we have is from 2022. But in 2022, according to the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, nonprofits employed almost 13 million people across the United States. That's 10% of the private workforce, meaning 10% of the people that don't work for federal, state, or local government are working in nonprofits. So here's a thing that we should all take back to our organizations. Not only can we hire people in nonprofits, we can and we must pay them reasonable salaries for the services that they provide that support our mission. If we are using being a nonprofit as an excuse not to pay people well, we're part of the problem. The only way that we can really change the world through nonprofit work is to keep people doing the work. And if they can't pay their bills, they can't stay working for us. Um, Salary decisions just have to comply with the state nonprofit laws and with IRS laws. So the IRS watches, they watch our reporting, and so does our Secretary of State in each of our states to make sure that we're not paying people unreasonably high salaries for nonprofits. I don't usually hear that that's a problem. It's if we hear that, it's big national organizations, not our locals. Um, and then nonprofit leadership is responsible for deciding what is reasonable and what is fair. Okay, here's one of my favorites. I spent about 7 years as director of public policy for a disability rights organization here in Tennessee, and I didn't really realize until I'd been in the field for quite a long time that nonprofits can advocate. They can support legislators in understanding the issues that face their clients and the people they work with. And so not only should can we as nonprofits speak up and help legislators be informed so that they can make good decisions on behalf of their communities, we have a responsibility. If we're working with food insecurity and we're trying to help make sure that families are able to feed their children, feed their families, we can help that issue by educating those legislators. Now, there are laws in every state that govern how you can do it, when you can do it, what are the boundaries and parameters, and we all have to know what those things are. But we are encouraged to advocate for issues that align with our mission, and lobbying is actually a legal and allowed activity for nonprofits. You just can't pay for it with certain kinds of money. So there are laws that tell us where the money can come from to hire a lobbyist, for instance. Advocacy can include speaking out on laws, policies, regulations. When new policies are being written and implemented, state agencies will put out announcements that there's an opportunity for public comment. That's an advocacy activity, and we can all do those kinds of things. Respond to those calls for input to help people make really good decisions. Tax exempt nonprofits. The one thing that we absolutely can never, ever, ever do is we can't support candidates. So we can't support partisan political activities. So, like, we can't go to a fundraiser for a county mayor and write a check for their campaign. All right. And here's a thing that's always really interesting to me. Um, in nonprofits, we talk a lot about fundraising. We talk about a lot about competing for grants. We talk a lot about individual donors, and many of us at the end of the year will do a Giving Tuesday campaign and ask people to donate $5 or $100, or and most of our money actually doesn't come from donations. So, according to the National Council of Nonprofits, and this is a information that is based on 2019 numbers and then updated a little bit year to year. The numbers are harder to come by post COVID than they were pre COVID. But the estimate is that 50% of our income comes from earned income, meaning that we charge for a program, we charge for a summer camp, we charge for trainings, we do something as a fee for our service. Government grants and contracts is another 30%. So my organization, my day job at Aim High, Tennessee, about 70% of our budget comes from federal pass-through dollars and state contracts. It's not unusual for lots of us to rely on government dollars, government contracts to support our programs. And in fact, until the last year or so, that was one of the most sustainable approaches for nonprofits was, you know, lucky enough to get in on some contracts with state agencies or federal agencies, and those can go for a long time and be really sustainable year on year. Only 15% of money that funds nonprofits across the country comes from individual private donors. So when we're all worried about, doing fundraising and doing campaigns and doing walkathons or runs or all of those things, that only makes up about 15% of the funding that nonprofits bring in. So before I move on, anybody have any questions, comments, thoughts? Did anything surprise you? Is this all information you already knew and we should move quickly? Anybody have anything? All right, I'm going to move on. So again, my focus, oh, that slide went funny. My focus is young, infants and young children. So most of my career, I've worked in the prenatal to age 6 age range. Um, Definitely almost always working with families and young children in some capacity. And so the book that I wrote is based on nonprofit stories and early childhood stories and analogies and the frame of early childhood. And so the next thing I want to talk about is not how nonprofits, how we work and how our frame of the world and of the work changes the way we do the work. So think back to when you were a little kid. For me, what's the one place on the playground you could always be found? For you, was it the swings? Was it the sandbox? Was it the monkey bars? We had, when I was in elementary school, these barrels that were death traps, and they don't have them anymore. But you would like run inside them and put your hands up and run, and they would go in circles. Lots of kids got concussions that way. But anyway, that was a fun one. Anybody have a favorite childhood playground place? Anybody willing to say?
I remember those barrels, by the way. And it just made me laugh like really hard. But my favorite was the swings.
Okay, flying high. Anybody else have a favorite? By the way, I have not thought of those barrels in years. Okay, for me, oh, go ahead. Who is speaking? Okay, I didn't want to interrupt anybody.
Yeah, I don't
Anything
know if
going
you.
on in the chat, Joya?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Good. Yes. So it's several swings and big slide. Marissa says, Tamia says swings, Barbara says swings. So a lot of swings.
Okay. All
Seesaw. They
right.
said seesaw.
Oh, the seesaw. Yeah, man, I don't think to mention the seesaw. That's a good one too. So for me, when I think of like where did I just dig in, for lack of a better way to say it, and spend a lot of time even in my backyard playing, it was a sandbox. I remember when I was a little girl playing in the sandbox with my brothers, trucks and tea sets and all kinds of things. And so when I think about nonprofit work and the playground, I talk a lot about the playground being our world of nonprofits. Think about the cooperation and the collaboration that it takes to work to be in a sandbox together. If you've got four or five or six or even two kids in a sandbox, um, and there's one shovel and one pail and one truck and one tea set, you're going to have cooperation, and they're going to have to work together and play together and figure out taking turns and all the things. And we don't often see kids thinking there's not enough sand in the sandbox, right? So that's where we're going next. So I want to talk about abundance as it relates to our work. So abundance is a mindset. And I think for when I think about how do we position ourselves to make a difference in our work and in our world, I think the first place we have to stop is with this idea of abundance. And so with abundance, it's actually a decision. Mindsets are always a decision, right? So let's think about what abundance is. So abundance, when we think about abundance in our work, it's when we root our work in possibility, in generosity, and in shared strength. It's thinking that we have enough, we are enough, and together we can do a thing. Abundance isn't a strategy, it's a way of being. It's a way of thinking, a way of behaving, and a way of interacting with other people. So, an example of abundance thinking is um, at Aim High, Tennessee, at my day job, we have a program that focuses on emergency support with a relationship focused kind of approach and lens for adults that are working in support of infants and young children. So think tornado. So a tornado hits a community. One of our programs helps to support grown-ups in figuring out how to prepare for when hard things happen, how to respond when they're happening, and then how to recover. We created a toolkit to really focus on that work. And as soon as we launched that toolkit, we realized we were the only ones in the country that were really focusing in the way that we were on helping infants and young children through relationships and through how we talk and how we interact to recover from emergencies. And so we took that toolkit and we put it out to our national network, and we said, use this every time you have a chance. And if you want it branded for your state, come to us. We'll work together to rebrand it so that it fits for you. That's an abundance mindset. We could have sold it. We could have said, hey, we can make a lot of money off of this. And we were hearing there are floods, there are tornadoes, there are acts of community violence. How can we get this work out into the world? Scarcity, on the other hand, is rooted in fear and isolation and limitation. Right now, the way that the world is functioning, the things that are happening, I don't know if it was big conversation for y'all last week when when SAMHSA cuts were, the letters started going out. I don't know if you, I'm sure lots of people know what I'm talking about. Where SAMHSA it was going to cut $2 million or $2 billion in programs. Um, in this kind of environment, it's really easy for us to think, oh my goodness, there's a limited amount of money. We have to fight for it. We have to keep it to ourselves. We can't share. Um, and frankly, I think that's where the world starts getting harder. So scarcity thinks there's not enough. I have to protect what's mine. We just have to survive. Scarcity feeds on urgency when we think we've got to do this quickly. We've got to, move people out of the way. We've got to just take care of our own. Um, but the work that we all do, regardless of whether we're working with children or elders um, or unhoused populations or veterans, or oh my goodness, the list is so long. Regardless, our work calls for us to be brave and to work together. And I'm saying this, and it can maybe sound I don't know, trite. My organization just in September lost $4 million. We lost 78% of our budget, 72% of our staff, and our focus is intentionally wanting and trying and hoping to be focused on abundance, because again, that's how we make it. Um, so again, I'm a little kid person. A lot of my illustrations are going to be cartoons and stuff. And quite frankly, my son is my designer. So he made that adorable little figure. But scarcity says we need more. Oh my goodness, we can't do this. And abundance says, it's okay. We're going to figure it out together. We're in this together. If we're not in this together, we lose. So our mindset matters. Um, there's one section on my book where I talk about the relationships of nonprofits. So the children's games of nonprofits, and they talk about relationships, and they talk about the different work that we do. So working with boards or working with volunteers. Um, One of the games that I talk about is King of the Mountain. So when we compete with each other in the nonprofit world, it can feel like we're playing King of the Mountain. Only one of us can be at the top of the mountain, and we've got to shove everybody else off in order to stay on top. Anybody ever play King of the Mountain when you were a kid? It was a brutal game, y'all. Especially if you do it like on a gravel pile. It's not okay. Lots of skin knees. But anyway, scarcity wants us to play King of the Mountain, fighting for that top spot, fearing that tumble, that fall from the top. But abundance wants us to play a different game. Abundance wants us to play leapfrog. So leapfrog, and I talked about this one day, and I had a friend and colleague who is an immigrant. She was like, I don't know this game. What are you talking about? So leapfrog, we squat down, and the person behind us leaps over us and propels themselves forward by leaning on us. And then they squat down and give us a turn. And so I think that our work together really, really calls us to play leapfrog. It asks us to work together, to let somebody else take the lead for a minute, and then we take the lead for a minute. When we're playing leapfrog, we're taking turns, we're building momentum, and we're moving forward. We're doing it together. So, but why? Why does this scarcity versus abundance thing, why does it matter? Well, again, I'm a little person, kind of a professional. So we know, if those of us that work with infants and young children, we know that little ones grow best when they're surrounded by strong relationships, warm environments, people who love them and take care of them and help them feel like they belong in this space and in this world, in this classroom, in this family. And as grown-ups, we are not different. We thrive and are our best selves when we're engaged in strong relationships, when we have warm, supportive environments, and when we have a sense of belonging. And so that's why abundance is important. Abundance tells us that our individual effort in unknown spaces can be transformed into a shared circle. So I don't have to keep the sandbox to myself. I can invite in my friends and we can be in this space together. And in that together space, we can all grow together. Scarcity tells us that we have to cling to the known and stay away from the unknown. So it's my shovel. I have to play with my shovel, and I can't let you have my shovel. But that also means I don't get a truck. Also means I don't get a pail. I've got a shovel, and that's what I have to play with. So if we want to build meaningful connections, we have to create space for the unknown, and it's in abundance thinking that creativity gets to thrive and gets to take us places. So how do we grow an abundance mindset? First, we have to reconsider our questions. So when something hard is happening, if our first question is, do we have enough to survive? What does somebody else have? We're not gonna do as well. So our questions can be things like, what can we do together that we can't do by ourselves? Leading with gratitude. And y'all, there are books and books and books and books written about gratitude. I mean, Oprah was not original when she talked about gratitude and gratitude journaling back in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s. Um, but leading with gratitude sets us up to sit in abundance. Anybody have any special gratitude practices that you'd be willing to share? I'll start, and then I would love it if somebody else would join in. So my staff at Aim High, Tennessee, for about the last 10 months or so, we start every staff connect. We stopped calling them staff meetings and started calling them staff connects because who wants another meeting? But we start every staff connect with with gratitude stories. So what's one thing that you're grateful for this week? What's one thing that you're grateful for that's coming up? But every staff person takes a turn in a staff connect, leading us in a gratitude activity. And it's kind of reset our mindset. Anybody have a gratitude activity? Gratitude practice? Oprah
I
told us
think
to journal. Yeah, go.
I say at the end of every day, I just try to think of 5 things that I'm grateful for.
Wow, that's nice. Is it ever hard to come up with five?
Sometimes, but I just believe like if nothing else, I'm grateful that I'm alive. I have the
Yeah.
use of my limbs. I'm in my right mind, so that
Oh, yeah,
generally
those are,
knocks out 3 if
yeah,
it's a harder day.
yeah. And some days can put you there. I have a friend who does that. I can't remember her number, but it's more than three. And she said that the longer that she does that, the harder it is to stop herself because she just keeps going. Anybody else have one? That's a good one.
There is a video that I have in my waiting room for my clients that I
Uh-huh.
practice. It's a gratitude meditation. So it's about 12 minutes long. So what it does is it kind of sets the tone for gratitude and kind of alters, like, you know how sometimes we get the Monday blues, right? So if I
Yeah.
start my day off with this gratitude meditation, it makes it easier for, like, at the end of the night when I'm kind of done, and kind of with what the young lady said, the 5 things to be grateful for. If I can't name anything, I start naming, like, I'm grateful for grass, I'm grateful for, the sky being blue, etc. Because I started my day off with these gratitude prompts that is like 12 minutes long.
Yeah. Oh, I like that one. Anybody else have one they want to share? All right, we'll go on. So centering relationships. When I came in the world of infant and early childhood mental health back in about 2012, 14, um, it was interesting to me that the entire field is centered on relationships. And I thought, well, social work. I've been doing this, most of my career. Social work is centered on relationships. And so when I walked into this space, I was like, we already know how to do this stuff, right? But remembering um, that the relationships, both with our colleagues, with our staff in our own organizations, with our partners, and with our clients and those we serve and support, um, centering relationships and keeping those people in mind helps us stay in abundance, rather than scarcity. Because the more we think about each other, the harder it is, um, to get into that panicked scarce space. Collaborate generously. I think there are so many examples of organizations and people who don't have a lot, who are the most giving around us, right? For those that are religious and read the Bible, there's the story of the widow's mite. Like, everyone was giving a share, and she gave everything. So collaborating generously, always thinking, who else can we invite to the table, is another space for that. What is one thing that you've done, say, in the last couple of months, that would show that you're collaborating generously? Inviting a new organization to a conversation, finding a grant and asking someone to partner. Who has an example? And it could be personal too. Hosting Thanksgiving dinner, giving your sister-in-law the recipe to the favorite dessert you make. What's your collaborating generously story?
So I volunteer my time at a university where we have a pantry that we participate at on the university, and I, as the social worker, volunteer my time to help those unhoused students, to let them know that we are there, and to extend those resources to them anonymously so that they don't feel that shame and that guilt.
Nice. What a gift to your community. Anybody else have one?
We enjoy feeding the homeless on Christmas. We need to do it outside of Christmas, but sometimes you're looking for those areas where you can do something. You're waiting for
Yeah,
the church or something like that, and you just come up with these random ideas. It's not like you're doing anything big, but it started off as something that just me and my family would do, and then it just turned into we usually have about 30 more volunteers and need to look for some more opportunities, but you just have to start somewhere. So we enjoy doing that on Christmas.
I like that. That's great. All right. So the last thing the strategy to grow your abundance mindset is use language that reflects possibility. Can't, won't, don't. Those are not possibility words. Can, will, um, I wonder, I'm curious about, what if we, I actually just started a social media campaign for my raising a nonprofit. Um, I had a friend a couple 3 weeks ago that said she was in a training one time, and the speaker said, "What do you think are the three most powerful words in the English language?" And so people were guessing yes and no, you know, I love you, like all kinds of guesses. Um, and the speaker stopped and said, "What if we?" The idea of possibility. And so am writing some things about what if we did this? What if we did that? So one of the things we can do is stop when we say there's no answer, there's no solution, this is horrible, we're facing a big crisis. What if we? And what if in our asking what if we let all of the possibilities go out, lay out there? What if we don't shoot any of them down? In a good brainstorming session, they say there are no bad ideas. So, what if I wonder, how about thinking about how we can shift the way that we talk, so that we're looking at possibility all the time.
And
So,
I mean, I'm sorry.
yeah, go right ahead.
Yeah, we had a comment from Tracy. Tracy said, we utilize social media, meet with our local officials, and collaborate with organizations regularly to promote growth.
Nice. Collaborating generously. I like it. Okay. So all of these things about possibility, one of the things that I want to make sure that we drive home, just because things are possible doesn't mean that they're the right thing for us either. So one of the things that we need to keep in mind is not every door is meant for us in our work. Saying no can be an act of care for our mission, our team, and our community. So it's a balance of being excited about possibility and making sure that we know we're slowing down, we're making good decisions. It's okay to say no, um, and still focusing on collaborating generously. So, as we're wrapping up, we just have a few minutes left. I wanted to spend a few minutes thinking about reflecting and thinking about our own work and our own leadership. So, first of all, and take just a minute and let's either write it down, stop and think about it, or unmute and share. What brought you into the work that you're doing? Why are you a social worker? How did you get here? What is it that brought you into this work? For me, social worker was the next step after being a preschool teacher. Um, and I've heard others follow a similar path. I was working with little ones, and there were so many things that kiddos were facing, that being in a classroom, I didn't have any way to help or impact. So I wound up shifting into social work and then wound up being a macro social worker. I haven't done one-on-one social work my entire career. Yeah. I see a hand. I can't make out the letters. Shanton?
Shantan,
Shanton. Okay.
I became a social worker because I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan, and I was an at-risk youth. So
Uh-huh.
at some point in time, I got a social worker because of whatever was going on in my experience, and
Yeah.
seeing that show up, that holding space, that being intentional about ensuring that whatever need we had was met, and also giving us the resources to also meet our own needs was like a foundation. But then when I worked for Detroit PAL and I saw the difference that I was making for children that were at risk youth, that's kind of what drove my heart. I originally wanted to be a lawyer, but I just wanted to help in some capacity, and social work ends up being where I found my calling.
Nice.
Awesome,
So
Angela. We
many of
have
us are
several
life
other comments.
experiences. Go ahead, Toya.
Yeah, we have several other comments. Um, Sinead, and I'm probably pronouncing the name wrong. I'm so sorry. To serve my community. Uh, Anna says, when I had my boy, my hubby was discriminated for being Hispanic by a social worker. Social worker.
Mm,
I knew we needed more bilingual social workers in Alabama. Kaylee said, my own personal, I guess this is why we became social workers. My own
yeah.
personal experiences, um, my heart and helping spirit, care for my elderly family members. Sylvia says, I had thought I would work with DHR, but had no idea I would work with juvenile delinquents. It's crazy how that happens. I've had similar experience with seniors. All right.
Right. Yeah, our hearts lead us into the work, and our experiences. I've some of the most passionate, driven, effective social workers I've worked with across the years um, came into the field because they saw some of us not doing it well, and they said, "I got to help fix this thing." So I appreciate those comments. Okay, so shifting gears from ourselves, let's think about our organization. So wherever you sit in your work, what's something that your organization has that you're grateful for? It can be a coworker, it can be the coffee machine, it can be the wonderful clients, it can be in anything. And then as you think about it, does thinking from a place of gratitude help have any impact on shifting your thoughts from scarcity to abundance? So, what are you grateful for in your work?
Well, this is the first job that I had where the supervisor provided or gave space for autonomy as well as a good work-life balance. So I'm very grateful for that at my job.
Man, we have a hard time figuring out how to give our staff work-life balance. Kudos to your organization.
Sinead said, great team environment. Shantan says, I'm grateful to see people's lives transform.
Oh yeah.
Anna says, my agency has an amazing impact in the immigrant community and they pay well. I love that they care
They
for
do
us. Hey, that's
pay.
a win-win, win-win. We love those.
Win-win.
Yeah.
I love that.
Looks like we've got a hand.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm assuming that that was my hand. I
Oh,
am I am grateful for our team. I work with an early Head Start program, and not all of our family partners or case managers have social work backgrounds, but they actually have, I guess the words would be, showed up and showed out this year, this program year, with some of the things that have happened. I was out for 2 months with on medical leave, and in my absence they stepped up to the plate and did food drives and got everyone involved on campus with helping our families get what they needed while they were unable to receive their SNAP benefits. And they're just an amazing team. And so I'm really grateful for them.
wow. Sounds like you've got a team that's focused on abundance. That's amazing.
Another comment. Tracy says, I'm grateful for the diversity of the populations I get to work with. I see ages 2 to 85 and all ethnicities. Marissa,
Wow.
yeah, that's a
That's a cool environment.
it is. Marissa says, being able to provide space for clients to feel and be seen, and seeing them realize how profound that is, often for the first time.
Wow.
We do some great stuff, don't we?
We do. Oh man, Alabama social workers. Y'all are great. Okay. one last reflection. And so thinking about nonprofits, whether you work in a nonprofit or we're just talking about nonprofits, what's one way or even two or three ways that we can shift our thinking about nonprofits as businesses? So by thinking about them as being different than businesses, it's harder for us to be successful. So what are some things, either based on some things I might have said tonight or something else? What are some ways that we can think about nonprofits as businesses and help them succeed? So while you think about it, I have one, and I recently talked to a funder about it. A funder asked me um, at the end of our interview, um, we have a really we do really interesting things from a business perspective in our organization. So our operations are well thought of by our funders. And so I had a funder that said, what can we do different to help other nonprofits be successful like your organization? And I said, well, number one, you can help us act like we're real businesses and stop expecting us to not have overhead. So that overhead thing, it's a real thing. And I said, and you can offer grants that pay staff, because so many funders will fund grants that fund programs, but they won't fund the people. I'm like, well, how are we supposed to carry out the work of that parenting program or that feeding program if we don't have people to do it? So I think our funders could step up and treat us like businesses more than they do. Anybody have any thoughts? It's kind of a tougher question.
No, that's really good because funding is huge with
Yeah.
nonprofits. It comes and it goes, doesn't it? And your story is amazing that
Yeah.
how you have rebounded and just stand in the attitude. But we have some comments here. Let's see. I think Marissa, did we read that? Being able to provide space for
Oh
clients to
yeah.
feel and be seen, and seeing them realize how profound that is, often for the first time. Okay, I think I read that one. I'm sorry. Um, Anna
Yeah.
said we need to reach to private sector for funding. We need to reach out to, I guess, the private
Yeah.
sector. Tracy says we are working in getting the credentialing process completed through Alabama Medicaid, which is a mess. No, she didn't say that. I'm sorry. She just said they're working on credentialing uh, through Alabama Medicaid to be able to bill for some of our services to provide, such as counseling and diagnostic testing, without relying on grant funding.
Yeah. So that fee for service model. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Okay, I'm realizing the time. I'm gonna scoot through my last slides. That is literally just the cover of my book in case you want to come find me. It is available on Amazon, Raising a Nonprofit in an Early Childhood World. And there's my contact information. Love it when people reach out, ask questions, tell me about your work, tell me, how maybe I could be helpful in your nonprofit work. So, but thank you for hanging out with me this evening. Thank you, Alabama social workers, for the work that you do. Sending all the appreciation from Tennessee.
Awesome, awesome. Let's give Angela a virtual round of applause. And we're just so thankful for this presentation. I just love the way that you speak. You're such an awesome presenter. It's just so relaxing. You have that relaxing voice, and then it's like you just want to keep listening. It's like keep talking, keep talking. So we appreciate a lot of knowledge. And it was I don't know about for you all, but it was very encouraging for me to hear someone, Angela, quoted off the stats. So some of us sometimes have difficulty with resilience, okay? And we don't see big picture, and we think from scarcity. But to have such a hit, I could see myself feeling like this has just been taken away from me. People are losing jobs. But to see your attitude And I'll have to talk to you sometime as seeming almost unscathed because not because it doesn't disturb you, but because you're maintaining a positive, hopeful attitude and saying, hey, things aren't just in one place. There's other possibilities. And so I believe that was encouraging for all of us. Certainly, if you want to take a look or share what you have learned and been taught today from this presentation, I've placed the link to our YouTube channel. Go and join and in the chat, and hopefully that will be an opportunity to share with others and support the cause of building, nonprofits and growing as social workers. I do want to again mention as we close that we do have another training coming up on next month, February 17th. It's called Integrating, the title, Integrating Creative Arts and Behavioral Health. So that will be on Tuesday, February 17th. And just keep an eye out on Social Workers of Alabama, and we will broadcast that information there. But we are not going to hold you. If you have any questions about your continuing education, just reach out to us at, let me put this in the chat, support at Aspire Counseling al.com. So if you run into any trouble with your CEU or have any questions for us, this is going to be the best way to get a pretty swift response. Support at aspirecounselingal.com. But those continuing education units should be coming out to you within the next couple of days. Hopefully, if we get blessed and lucky, we could do that at the same time. We'll have it out tomorrow. Um, and thank you again. And we will see you all again, hopefully on next month or in the chat. Thanks again, Angela. You all have a great evening. All right.
Thanks. Take care.
Take care.